Get the inside track on 20 top business trends for 2020 from Joel Block. Joel's insights bring Wall Street to your street so you can profit from the inside in 2020. Just text the word TREND to 72000. That's 72000 and download your free copy today. Grab your phone and get the inside track on business trends that affect you and your business. Just text the word TREND to 72000 for your copy now. This is Profit from the Inside with Joel Block. Insights to give your business the inside track. And now, here's your host, Joel Block.
You ever wonder how to make your company distinctive? Sometimes distinctive to the point of it being iconic? To tell us how and answer that question, Scott McKain. Scott, how are you?
Joel, I'm terrific. Gosh, it's good talking to you.
God, you have such a cool voice. You sound like we're on the radio together right now.
I'm going to do time and traffic here at any second.
But you're an old time radio guy, right?
I'm an old radio guy. I've got a lot of buddies that say I've got a face just made for radio. So I need better friends.
Yeah, well, I'm doing. You add that to my girlish figure, and then we got the whole package.
I got to tell you, one of the most thrilling days I ever had. I had never been to a television taping before. And I was in the Los Angeles area, and my wife said, let's go see a TV taping. And so we went, and I had the chance to meet Rick Dees. And he asked me if I wanted to come in and sit in the studio the next morning. And I said at Kiss FM in Los Angeles, watching Rick Dees do his show. And it was one of the great, I thought, man, I'm an amateur at this thing.
Come on, that guy was like on the radio when I was a kid, like in the 70s.
Yeah. This would have been in the 90s, but he was still going strong. And then when I left radio, the gal that took my place, I trained her how to work in radio at this small station. And her name is Ellen Kay, who is now in Los Angeles. And she was Rick Dees' sidekick, and then is the sidekick now with the guy that hosts American Idol, Ryan Seacrest. She's his sidekick. So it's kind of a small world. She ended up working for Rick Dees, and I remember in Columbus, Indiana, telling her about, oh my gosh, you can't believe I got to sit in with Rick Dees. So life is strange, the twists and turns.
Yeah. So let's get to business here. So
you betcha.
So you're a prolific keynote speaker. You travel all over the country and around the world. You've got some of the best clients, big companies.
Thanks.
And your whole thing is distinction. It's distinction to the point of becoming iconic. Yeah. And I really want to kind of tear into this because a lot of companies don't have any distinction at all, let alone get to the next level. So help us understand, first, what's the difference between those things? And then how do we get there?
Distinction means that you stand out in your particular field or your particular industry. One of the things I'm a big believer of is that if we don't know what sets us apart from the competition, how in the world are our customers going to get it? How in the world are our employees going to get it? The National Retail Federation did a study, and they said about 70% of frontline people in any business cannot answer the question, why is it better to buy from you than the competition? Our own people don't know why somebody should buy from us as opposed to a competitor in our marketplace. So distinction means that we've created the strategy and executed the tactics that make us stand out, that there's a reason that customers would pick us or employees would choose to work for us. We've risen to the top of our particular field.
Okay, so there are several different words that are kind of all related. What's positioning, branding? How does that tie into distinctive? I mean, how do these things work together?
Well, they're all elements in it, but I see folks that think they have brands, and their brand evidently is that their logo is yellow instead of red. There's nothing that they do that is compelling. And at the end of the day, that's the best yardstick. People say, how do you measure distinction? And one of the things that I say is, you can do surveys and you can say who's the best in their field. You can do surveys and say, who stands out the most. But to me, it is repeat and referral business. If customers are coming back to buy more from you, and if they're recommending you to their friends and colleagues, then there must be something about you that they find compelling. So, positioning is important. How you position yourself is critical. How you brand yourself, your business is critical. But that doesn't ensure distinction. It's just like I hear these folks saying, well, different is the best. Different is better than better. No, it's not. I can slap every customer in the face and it makes me different. Right? I mean, that'd be really differentiated. You come in here and I'll punch you in the mouth. But no customer is going to repeat their business. I see a lot of folks that confuse differentiation with distinction. And that leads us down a bad pathway because it implies that if we do something different, that customers will be attracted to it. No, it has to be something meaningful for that customer, not for us.
Well, see, you're not going to say meaningful for every single customer. I mean, is it going to kind of be in a bucket that many people find meaningful? I mean, how do you organize that?
I always compare it to show business. 20 some years ago, my first book was All Business is Show Business. So if we think about how a movie is created, very few movies are built so that the entire world would come see it. They have target markets. I watched a movie last night that was kind of an art film that was meant for the serious moviegoer. Now, there aren't going to be lunchboxes that they sell kids to carry a mother lunchbox to school. There's not going to be all these assorted things like Disney would do with, the live action version of Lion King. So they have a very precise audience. And I think that's how we have to approach our business, is that we're not all things to all people. Let me give you a specific example in a smaller business. I do a lot of work with financial advisors, and I met an advisor and became friends with an advisor in Florida, and she only works with people associated with the sport of polo.
Really?
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. If you don't have polo ponies or if you're not involved in polo, then she'll refer you to somebody else. That exclusivity is what has driven her success. Now, I realize, if you're looking for wealthy people, polo is a pretty good place, right? I wouldn't go to the bowling alley and say I only deal with, people in bowling leagues. Yeah, nothing wrong with that, but it's not the type of client that type of advisor would be looking for. So her exclusivity, her precision in choosing her target market is part of what's contributed to her distinction. Just as if we were making a movie, we would think about, okay, who's this for? Who's going to see it? And then everything would be geared toward not getting the whole world to come see our movie, but our specific target market. Action films, gee, what a shock. They buy spots on ESPN to get guys to go see action movies. Romance, what they call a rom-com, the romantic comedy. Guess where they buy ads? Lifetime. They know their target audience, and we have to be just as precise. I have 4 cornerstones to distinction. These are the 4 things that you have to do to create distinction. And the first and foremost, I mean, the foundation of it is clarity. You got to be absolutely precise about who and what you are, who your target market is, and where you go from there.
My experience is that smaller companies especially have this problem. Medium-sized companies do too. They don't want to define the market because they might miss somebody in their definition. And your polo advisor is just such a great example, because a lot of advisors would say, if you have money, you're my prospect. Yeah. And that pretty much doesn't work, because if everybody's your thing, nobody's your thing, right?
Well, you're exactly right. And one of the joke I use with advisors is, well, if that's your criteria, you ought to be prospecting at the convenience store, because that's where winning lottery tickets are sold. I mean, if money's all it takes, why not go there? You're so right, Joe. We just finished a couple other of our speaker friends, Larry Winget and Randy Pennington, and I do a program every year called the Ultimate Business Summit. And it's for small businesses, but the 3 of us all grew up in families that, we grew up in very, very modest circumstances with entrepreneurs as parents. And we realized that as we speak to these huge companies, that there's something missing for smaller business people. So we put on this program every year. And I think if you were to define the number one challenge that these folks face, and we have everything from mortgage brokers to chimney sweeps to landscapers, on and on and on, that attend this program, and you hit on the number one thing that they all have in common as a problem, is that they think, gosh, if I refine my business, then I'm going to exclude these prospects, and so we become all things to all people. Joel, it was true in my speaking business. When I started out speaking, I was a nice guy, could give a good speech, and who books that? But unless you're at the bottom of the barrel, if you wanted time management, okay, I'll put that together. Stress management, yeah, I'll be stressed to put this together. I'll figure it out. And when people say, "What do you talk about?" I'd say about an hour. I had absolutely no clarity other than I wanted to check to give a speech, and it wasn't until I started doing this process that you're talking about here that things happened for me in my business. So I know it'll work forever.
It's not a coincidence that bigger companies get bigger because they get more targeted. And
Yes.
little companies, I've seen this, and as companies go from little to medium sized to bigger, they start peeling away the customers. Professional people, CPAs and attorneys, they have to cut away certain clients from the bottom by raising their fees. Yeah. And they over time, you sort of get better at picking, the right people. And the sooner you start picking the right people, the better. But not everybody has the ability to say no. That's the hard part, is when you get the ability to say no is when you really start to grow.
You're so right. That's part of what I love about what you're doing, Joel. I grew up near Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up on the Indiana side of the river, but near Louisville, Kentucky. So you go to Churchill Downs and you'd watch the horses run. And without fail, where did they want to be? They wanted to be, to use your phrase, on the inside track.
On the inside track. That's it.
It's not that, hey, we're going to run anywhere on the track we want. It's that winners run on the inside. Why? Well, it's shorter. It's faster. It's the way to get there. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's picking a lane, right? Every jockey wanted to be in that lane, but they didn't want to run on the far outside.
Yeah. Well, listen, the people who listen to the show know that they make more money by being on the inside track. That's why we call it profit from the inside. And that's it. And people from Wall Street, where I've kind of spent my lifetime, in the money business, have the inside track on all kinds of things for business people, and all the things that we bring together, including things like the marketing, the branding, and the issues that you're bringing up, being distinctive to the point of becoming iconic, really are part of the formula that these companies need to adopt.
And the execution of that formula is essential. But if you don't know what the formula is, how in the world do you expect your customers to understand? Heck, your employees aren't even going to get it, right? Unless you're very precise about it, which is why clarity is the first cornerstone.
Well, it's a little bit frightening to me that the employees don't know what their own companies do. I mean, that is an enormous problem that we deal with from time to time. But let's go to the bottom of the formula and let's talk. Are there some questions that people should be asking that will help them to start figuring out, what they're going to do, or if they're already distinctive, how they go to the next level? So what are some of the things they need to think about or ask or consider?
The first question is, and I think this is the primary question we all need to be asking in our respective businesses: why would a customer choose us instead of the competition? What is so unique about our products or our services or our customer experience that customers would decide to choose us rather than the competition? And for many of us in business, the stocks or bonds or financial instruments, or the type of car, or the machinery, whatever it might be, whatever we sell, people can get something pretty similar to that down the road, right? I mean, it's hard to differentiate on a product specific basis these days. So for most of us, probably most of us, I was going to say many of us, but probably for most of us, it's not going to be found in product differentiation. It's going to be found in, there's something that we do and how we run our business, or how we see the world, or how we approach a customer's problem that's going to be unique. If we don't have that, right, to be a customer, I mean, this is business 101, but to be a customer, it means I have to choose you. It's not that I choose you, it's that I choose you instead of all of the other of the myriad of alternatives out there in this hyper competitive marketplace. So why would a customer choose you? Because if I see no difference between you and the competition, now the only way that I establish some type of difference is price, which none of us want to be there. So what we have to do is to find another compelling reason for customers to choose us other than mere price. And that's where how we serve customers. That's the fourth of the four cornerstones is the customer experience focus. Every distinctive organization or individual has that.
So what's the best way for a company to either figure this out, or if they're much further along, to refine this? Do they sit in a board meeting? Do the partners have a retreat? Do they do surveys of their customers? I mean, what are the best ways that you're seeing companies figure this out and go to the next level?
Two things. Number one is they do survey their customers, and part of what they ask is, why did you choose to do business with us? And I've worked with companies that are absolutely gobsmacked by the results. They think it's because of their superior product, and instead it's, I always get in line for this cashier. She's so nice. I mean, it's amazing what you're going to find out by asking that. The main statistic, by the way, I can't believe it. I had this in a book 15 years ago, and it is the cover article of Harvard Business Review today, asking the same question, which is, are metrics killing your business? Are you so metric focused that you're killing your business? I think we look at the wrong metrics. And the first metric I'd have a business look at is, take a look at your customers. Now, how many of them repeat their business? Because if your marketing is doing a good job getting them in the tent, but your experience isn't keeping them in the tent, then what you have to do to grow your business is not market more, it's to close the back door and focus on retention. Too many businesses focus constantly on acquisition, but real growth is the combination of acquisition and retention, and it's creating distinctive strategies that keep your customers there.
So give us a couple examples of things that you've seen where companies have figured out ways to go from being a little bland to pretty distinctive.
One of our clients is Fairmont Hotels, and we did a lot of work with the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess. And gosh, what a terrific team! Jack Miller is the CEO, general manager there, and just an incredible leader. And part of what they realized was, if you've got this resort hotel in the desert, we need to have a better customer experience. So they went through the process of creating distinction. They got more clear about focusing on the meeting market. They got more clear about making sure that, for example, they changed part of the outside so that there'd be a big, beautiful outside bar, so that when the convention let out for the day, it was easy to go get a drink and that. So they changed some of the mechanics of that. But then they said, okay, so how do we take it to the next level? What can we do to improve on our weaknesses? As you might imagine, one of the slowest times for them was the Christmas time, right? Because there's no conferences or conventions going on at the holidays. People from Phoenix would either go back home to the Midwest or wherever they came from to celebrate Christmas with the rest of their family, or, they'd have family in, but it wasn't a popular time for them. They decided, let's own Christmas in Phoenix. Let's be the place that everyone has to go to. So they've built it over the years. They now have several million Christmas lights. They have an ice skating rink. It's Disney-esque. It's absolutely stunning and amazing. They now have hundreds of thousands of people that tour the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess in the holiday season. Now it's become, from one of their lowest occupancy rates, you can't get a room there now, because so many, now families are flying from the Midwest to visit their folks in Phoenix, and then the folks in Phoenix then put them in the hotel so they can stay there. It has been an absolutely incredible transformation, because they said, how do we take this aspect of our business and just own this in our community? And it's transformed their business to the point that Jack Miller, the GM CEO, was named General Manager of the Year for all hotels and resorts all over the nation. It's an absolutely amazing transformation.
You know what's interesting about that is that it's become a thing. The modern word is it's a thing now. So does that make it iconic? If it's gone from distinction to a thing, does that make it iconic in that marketplace?
Yeah, and that's, to me, the definition of iconic is that you transcend your particular category. So what the Fairmont has become, to your point, Joel, you're exactly right, is not just a great hotel during the holidays. It is the place for everyone to go. It's the place for everyone to see. I've got a buddy that works at ESPN, Sage Steele, and she took her family there, and she called me and said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. It's so fantastic. It's going to be a Christmas tradition. Well, then ESPN moves her back to Connecticut to anchor Sports Center, but she's still going to take her kids and their family. That now it becomes a family trip, right? Because it's exciting.
It's become a thing. I mean, it's like it's a thing you got to do, right? And
it's the thing you got to do.
Here's what's crystal clear about it, and this is over and over again: is great questions produce great answers. They asked a great question, and they got great answers, and they probably had a whole whiteboard full of possible answers. And maybe they did some of them, maybe they did all of them, or maybe they did many of them, or who knows what they did. But great questions produce great answers. So you got to sit around a table with your team, and you got to focus on questions. Some are going to be uncomfortable or irritating. Some are going to be, just exactly right. But you have to address it, and that's what creates the brainstorming, and that's an awesome outcome. So
yeah, it's been incredible for them, but it's also provided a lot of joy for their customers, both the repeat customers who keep coming back every year and the new customers that they attract. And see, there we go. The people who's been there once and enjoyed it go back every year. So they've retained that business.
What was your role in that process? Did you have a role in that process with them?
One of the, as a matter of fact, they're the genesis of the book Iconic, because they were saying we went through this process of distinction. Now what's next? And Joel, as crazy as it sounds, it had never occurred to me before. I'd written a book on how you create distinction, but not how you sustain it or how you take it to the highest level. And jokingly around breakfast one morning, they said, well, next will be Iconic. And it was the light bulb over the head, is that aha moment. Yes, Iconic. That's the next thing. So, they had already started the Christmas thing. We tried to stimulate discussion about how do you make this iconic, and that became their theme. Just having this Christmas tradition makes us distinctive among other hotels in the area.
One of the other really important things is that very frequently great ideas come out of thin air. Or there are turning points. There are moments that really matter. Like, for example, you're sitting at breakfast and they say that we've gone from distinctive to iconic. And that the light bulb goes off for you because it tied a couple of your important concepts together. And that's how it is for all of us. And we have to be looking for those turning point moments because those moments really, if we ignore them, we leave tons and tons of money on the table. But if we take advantage of them, we jump immediately onto the inside track and we take a shortcut right to the finish line.
And I think one of the questions is, to your point, I just did a blog post about this, is that how would somebody else do this? Not in your industry. It wouldn't have helped the Fairmont to say, gee, what would the Four Seasons do? What would the Phoenician do? But it would help them to say, okay, so if Amazon was running this, how would they run it? Or if Disney, right, was running this in their park, what would they do? Or if Southwest Airlines was doing this, what would they do? For example, the guy that they have a train, and parents and their kids get on this little train and it goes around the property and sees all of the lights and all the motion and everything else going on. How would Southwest do that? Well, they would tell jokes. So you get a comedy writer to write some jokes, and you use that on that little train, just like a Southwest flight attendant does it when you get on a flight. It's what psychologists call transpositional thinking. It's thinking in a different way. And
I'll tell you how I'm just thinking about this, getting yourself out of your own way. It's like, you're thinking one way, and then, when you immediately move over to something else, and maybe it's got a fancy name, like you just said, I'm sure it does. But I'm just thinking, it just immediately forces you to think in a different way and get out of your own way, and bang, you're good to go. Very, very cool.
Yeah. And it forces you to eliminate those awful things that we say, like, well, we've never done it that way before.
That's the whole point.
Right, exactly, right? I mean, because that's how you get in your own way is, well, we've never done it that way before. I don't know if that would work. Well, hotels don't do that kind of thing. All of that.
Next time somebody says we've never done it that way before, exactly, that's the point. Do the opposite.
My buddy Larry Wingett used to tell this story about Radio Shack, and he said when they wanted his name, address, and phone number, he said, well, I'm buying batteries. You don't get it. Well, we've always done it this way. He goes, now's your chance. Think of this, your opportunity to do it differently right here, right now. And I think that's how we need to approach it.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was telling the wrong person, the cashier. Those poor, they were young kids, they didn't know anything. So what, So, what are ways that companies can move from, being? I was talking about another one that went from bland to distinctive. Maybe not necessarily even to iconic, but how do companies go from bland or kind of just part of the mix to having some distinction? What are things? Because I see so many companies that just don't have what you would call distinction.
Right.
Let's just see if we can't dig in a little bit deeper and give people some tools that they can use.
Here's 4 steps. Number 1, get clear. We've talked about that already. You got to get absolutely precise. You got to get so precise that when someone says, "What do?" you can answer it in 6 seconds. You got to be absolutely clear. If you look at what, for example, Steve Jobs did when he first came to Apple, that's overused, but it's the true example. He eliminated most of the product line. A.G. Lafley at Procter & Gamble a few years back eliminated 90 different products that they were selling. You get really clear about who you are. Then once you have that clarity, now you get creative. You find one innovative thing that you can do. That's what's different about business. If we just do one thing creatively, then we can make a huge, for example, enterprise rental car. The Chevy's the same. The Ford's the same. But when they said, "We'll pick you up, we'll bring the car to you rather than make you go get the car," it was the foundation of how they became an iconic organization. So it just takes one unique aspect to make all the difference. Third is communication. What's the narrative? What's the story? People today won't listen to your facts and your figures and your info, but they will listen to a compelling story. So how do you create a compelling narrative about your business or about how you serve customers that will get people to listen? Fourth is the customer experience focus, where so few spend their time. I spoke recently to a meeting of people that own body shops. I mean, there was like 400 people in the audience, and they were all owners of car repair body shops. Not one single person in that room got in business because they wanted to serve customers. They all got in it because they wanted to be around cars. They liked working on cars. But yet, I can get a dent fixed 100 different places in town. How will you create an experience that's so compelling? When Tammy and I got married, she had 2 teenage sons, and if you want to watch your auto policy grow exponentially in insurance prices, put 2 teenage boys on. They sent me the first bill, Joel, and I thought it was a ransom note. It was just. But so naturally, we had a ding in the car, and Tammy takes it to the body shop to get it repaired because I'm out of town. And she called, and the first thing she said was, "Oh my gosh," because she said, "Oh, here I am. I'm a woman taking this car in. What's going to be?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, they were so nice, and it was so clean you could eat off the floor." Now, where does that come into play with fixing cars? But they created an experience for her so that was the only place that we went for car maintenance and car repair, because they created a great customer experience. But yet most of those folks in that room focused on, well, could we fix the dent? Could we repair the car? Hey, you've got to have that. But everybody has that. How do you take it to the highest level? And it's through the experience that you create for your customers. So it's clarity, creativity, communication, customer experience.
So I guess that clarity, you have to kind of know in your business what's table stakes. In other words, fixing a car for a car repair place is so basic. There's a company that records all my stuff, all my meetings, and they do transcriptions. So the transcription is their table stakes. It's everything above that. I mean, you don't get credit for your basic thing. Whatever your basic thing is, locksmiths don't get credit for opening doors. There's something extra. And that's what I'm hearing you say, is that I think we have to separate the table stakes from everything above what's considered basic.
You're exactly right. But for small and medium-sized business, the table stakes, that's what attracted them to get in the business to begin with, which is why it's so hard, so difficult to realize that's not what's going to grow your business. That's not, there's 3 levels at which we interact with customers. The first level is processing. It's doing your job, right? I mean, don't brag to me. If you're an airline, don't brag to me that you're safe. I'm buying a ticket, not a chance. I mean, don't brag that you're safe, because I have a right to expect safety. That's the basic, right? That's not going to separate you from the competition. But what do they spend a lot of their time on? And that's hard for us in business to realize, is that the very thing that attracted us to what we do may not be why customers are buying what we sell.
Well, I think it's a very interesting way of looking at this. And my big takeaway for me, the inside track, there are several pieces of this here, but one is if you separate the table stakes from everything else, what is so basic about what you do that, what's the most basic part, then you can focus on the next step. I think another big piece, I love the idea of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, asking questions, what would some other company do? That is a really powerful set of questions that could really take you down a path, because that brings the best of everybody else to your environment. And that's what I love about that, is that it really, it just opens the door to some really cool ideas.
And that's the key, isn't it? Is having these good ideas. Joel, we have such a luxury in our profession to be able to sit back and to examine and to study. But the people that we work with, they get so busy doing what they do, they don't take time to think about what they do. And the generation of ideas, that happens when you discipline yourself to set aside time to do it, or when you're constantly thinking about it. And I think that's part of our role, is to be a catalyst to get these folks to think about those kinds of things.
One of the things for me is that I set aside time to be creative. I try to have a lot of time to be creative, think about new ideas. And a lot of people aren't creative. Now, I'm not creative like I'm not a painter or an artist or a writer, but I'm creative in just terms of coming up with ideas. And everybody has some amount of creativity about what it is. I tend to think that people are brilliant in the things that they enjoy. Every child in school is a brilliant kid in something. They may not be brilliant in history or math, but it's the teacher's job to bring the brilliance out of the kid. And I really believe that. And I think a lot of children are left behind, but that's, to me, we all have to find a little time to be creative. And if you don't have it, then you got to create a team, get in a mastermind, join a group, find other people, hang with your friends, whatever it is that you do, and then start asking these hard questions. And the other thing, to your point that you made earlier, is let's survey people. And maybe you start by surveying your friends who've used your services, if you can't go to your customers and do it. So, the problem with surveys and things like you're talking about, these metrics, a lot of times they get distorted and we don't get the right information because we may ask the wrong questions or whatever. But
I joked in one book that the definition of a focus group is people who drink your coffee and eat your cookies to give you opinions they themselves did not have until this started.
Yeah, listen, I think that this political climate has really taught us that polls and a lot of these things really don't work, because people don't want to share their intimate feelings in a public way because they're afraid they're going to be yelled at or criticized or something. So it's become much more difficult in our environment to get honest feedback. And I don't know how you go about getting it, but you got to get it, and it's become more difficult.
And that, to your point, that's part of why I say the important metric for a business to look at first and foremost is repeat business. Are our customers coming back and buying more? And if they are, then let's accentuate what we're doing that's getting them to come back. If they aren't, we got to change something. We got to figure this out, right? But instead, they'll throw money at marketing to try to get more customers in the tent that then leave because of an inferior experience. It's mind-boggling, but yet, and I was a speaker a while back, Joel, for a group of surgeons. I was the first non-doctor to keynote the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgeons. So it's all these plastic surgeons from all over the country. And after it's over, we're in the bar having a drink, talking about what I said. And one of the surgeons says, it struck me during your talk that I went through medical school, went through my internship, went through my residency, founded my practice, and I never took a single course on bedside manner. So I started talking about that in businesses, right? So the CEO of the company I was speaking for came up and he said, that really struck me because I realized, he said, I have an MBA and I never took a course on the customer experience.
Really?
I think we have, at some schools, have trained a generation of leaders who understand EBITDA, and they can read a balance sheet like I would read a newspaper and see things in it that I wouldn't see, but yet have not a clue about how to create experiences that are compelling and meaningful and engaging for customers that ensure they repeat and refer your business.
We're sort of out of balance. I mean, our education, our systems are old. and a lot of them need to be refreshed. And I think that it goes back to distinction is that and clarity. I think that we don't really understand a lot of what we're doing. We educate people the way we always have because we always have. And the world has changed, but a lot of our systems, processes, and everything has not. So our government institutions, our educational institutions, and now you're talking about our business institutions, are just not keeping up with the pace of change of our world. And hey, listen, but you've given us the inside track, and that's what matters.
I was just getting ready to say, Joel, that's why what you're doing is so important, because you're helping people who didn't have the opportunity to participate in the system that would keep them on. You're giving them the opportunity to get to the inside track, and that's that whole part that we're doing in terms of education and in terms of insight becomes so valuable in a marketplace that didn't, unfortunately, because of old systems, get what it takes to prepare them to go to the inside track today.
Well, listen, thank you very much for sharing your insights, your knowledge, your time. Thank you for being my friend. You're an awesome guy. You bring so much value to the table. We'll put your contact information and other things in the show notes so people can get a hold of you if they want you. But you're awesome, and I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Hey, that works both ways. Those would be the exact words I'd use to describe you, Joel. So I truly appreciate our friendship and appreciate how awesome you are. And thank you for the privilege of sharing this with you.
All right. Great. Thanks, Ben.
You've been listening to Profit from the Inside with Joel Block. For more insights and to learn more, visit joelblock.com.
How about a shout out and a giant thanks to my podcast producer, David Wolf, and his team at Podcast and Radio Networks. Profit from the Inside simply wouldn't be what it is without David and his team. For more information or to learn how you can launch and produce your own podcast, reach out to podcastandradio.com.
The inside track on 20 top business trends for 2020 from Joel Block. Joel's insights bring Wall Street to your street so you can profit from the inside in 2020. Just text the word TREND to 72000. That's 72000 and download your free copy today. Grab your phone and get the inside track on business trends that affect you and your business. Just text the word TREND to 72000 for your copy now.